Most playwrights and many actors become playwrights and actors because they've seen a play or admired an actor or actress in a play. I doubt if many people just invent a life, particularly in the theater, without going to the theater. I was so fortunate because my father, in addition to being a newspaperman and a playwright, and even at times a novelist, was a theater critic. And his habit of life included going to the theater. And as soon as my brother and I were old enough to go with my mother and my father, we did. And so it became a lucky and happy habit. Because film is so available to all of us, a lot of people who just can't get to the theater or don't have a lot of theater around them, some of the best work is seen in film. And I must say, I have seen truly wonderful acting in films, and I admire it and love it. And of course, some films are brilliantly written too. So it seems to me that what is important, of course, is the experience. Being in a theater and seeing a play, or being in a movie theater and being with people. Well, actually, I think if we went back to the Greeks, it's all part of the same thing. It's wanting to hear a story, and wanting to hear it through human beings like ourselves. I'm going to talk mostly about the stage because film is different. When you make a movie, you can edit out things. But once the play is on the stage and is opened, you don't edit it. It's always there. Every scene is there. You don't have to see it. You don't have to see it because your mind is inventing it. But when you have a book with a play in it, or if you're a lucky actor and someone sends you a script, you can pick it up whenever you want to. And part of the thrill of it is that you're alone with it. You're not sharing this experience with anybody else. It's yours. And that frees your imagination. And even if the playwright gives a detailed description of where the play takes place or how the characters look, he can't control your mind, and you invent your play. For me, reading a script for the first time is one of the adventures of being in the theater. And I remember once being in a play, and it was the day we were going to open, and the director said to us, "Try to remember what you felt when you first read this play." And I thought that was such a wonderful thing to say. It wasn't, use everything I've told you up until this moment and blah, blah, blah about the rehearsal. No. It was your reaction, your personal reaction to the play. So if you have a book full of plays, you are adding yourself to it. After a while, you can teach yourself how to read a play. If you just read the words the character's saying, not worry too much who's saying what. When you begin to read a play that's complicated in that way, who is this person speaking? Then you can go back, and by that time, when you've read it one way through, you'll have no difficulty in recognizing, oh, that's the grandmother. Oh, that's Astrov, that's the doctor, of course. Oh, that's the beautiful woman, that's Helena. Because no one else could speak that way. It's a good thing to think about. And it's a good thing for people who are interested in acting to think about, because without knowing you're going to, you identify to certain characters in a play because of who you are. You are the other person in the playwright's mind. One of the reasons I'm interested in people reading plays when they're young is that it's before people tell you what to think about literature. You're making up your own mind about it. Every playwright awakens something in you you didn't know was there. There isn't a director telling you what to look at. You choose what to look at. You are your own camera. And so, when you're reading, you are the camera, you are the hearing device, you're everything yourself. You have to be able to see yourself on the stage, to project an image of yourself acting. You have to hear your own voice in your secret ear. You have to be brave, and you have to let your imagination fill out things that you haven't found yet in the play. But I think that the first thing any director would say to you is, don't act. Let the words tell it all. And that doesn't seem so odd if you think of a playwright in the same way you think naturally of a musician. Play the notes, a musician, a composer would say to you. You don't have to ornament them or make them longer or shorter than I've said in this script. And both Beckett and Albee have very distinct ways of punctuation, as indeed did Shakespeare. Very little, very little. But what's there, you should pay attention to, even when you're reading silently. Where does the character breathe? Where does the thought change? Why this word and not that word? Why is this word again? Why is it repeated so soon? Why do the characters pick up on the language of each other and test the person that's speaking? But the interesting thing about doing a play, for instance, by Edward Albee is he will say to you that you can ask him anything, which is very generous. And so you ask him, and he says, the answer is in the play. And it is. It always is. We don't have Shakespeare or Ibsen to ask. I would say, not because we're talking about a book, a collection, not because, I would say this anyway. Look for all the answers in the plays. They're there. I know they are. One of the wonderful things about reading a play is that you can go back and read the page again. You can take your time with it. I used to be a very fast reader when I was younger. And interestingly, to me anyway, it's interesting, I read more slowly now, carefully, lovingly, I suppose you'd say. But I think when you're younger, you're impatient to turn the page. You want to know what's going to happen next. I've sat in the theater with people, at movies more than plays, where they will tell me what's going to happen next, and I find that infuriating. I don't want someone else's idea of what will happen, or who committed the murder. The gardener did it, the butler did it. Now, I don't want to hear that. I think that Again, that private owning of a playwright's work, when you read it on the page, makes the public performance of a play much more meaningful to people. I think when you're reading a play, a comic play, a comedy, it helps to know something about the history of the time in which it was written. Because what was making the public laugh, not when they were in the theater, but who was the king at that time? Who was the queen? Who were the serfs? Who were the slaves? Who were the masters? What was the situation politically, and so on? If you have that in your head, or if you're curious about it and look it up, I think it makes all plays more interesting. In plays, in comic plays, the playwright so often is referring to what is happening in his world, in the real world, at the moment. And it's often making fun of people, characters in the real world. But as the centuries pile up and go on, sometimes that humor which comes from the time it was written in seems archaic and not funny. I can separate the written word from the performance in a professional play and in a school play. And I think that's a valuable thing to be able to do, because sometimes the situation doesn't allow all the actors to be on the same page, as we say in the theater, and it doesn't work as well. But you don't want to lose faith in the plays you love. I've seen poor performances of Shakespeare, particularly the comedies, which are more difficult to do than the tragedies. And I think, oh, don't spoil this play for me. I still love it. I'm still faithful to it. I love this play. And I think it's a good idea to write your thoughts down anyway, whether you become a writer or not. To remember what you thought at a certain time, at a certain age. You think when you're young you'll never forget, but you could forget. So write down what interests you. When I was young, you weren't allowed to write in the margin of a book, but maybe you could even write a few words in the margin of a book. I write things in the script, the acting version of a play that I do. I just think this gift that sets us apart from the rest of the animal world should be used, and that your opinions are as important as anybody else's, especially when you are in communion with a writer that you care about. Write it down.